Iska might be the world's top swordsman, but beneath all that skill, he's just a hopeless f***ing loser. His entire life flips when he wants to clap the enemy princess. He's ready to throw hands with his own side if it means getting closer to her. Everything kicked off when the Empire began locking up humans who had magic powers. But there was one nation, called the Nebulis Sovereignty, that welcomed those magic users, like witches and mages. This sparked a never-ending war between the two sides. Inside a high-security prison, a pink-haired girl gets rescued by Iska, a soldier from the Empire. After snapping her chains, Iska slips her some money and snacks to help her survive for a bit, then lets her go. But it doesn't take long for the higher-ups to find out what he did, and as punishment, they throw Iska behind bars too. A year later, Iska is let out again. This time, the Empire wants him to make up for what he did by helping in their century-long war. His mission: take out a powerful astro mage named Pure Bird, one of the bloodline descendants of the legendary witch Nebulis. Long ago, Nebulis nearly burned the Empire to ashes with her insane powers, and her heirs, known as purebloods, still carry that same dangerous magic. Iska is ordered to eliminate a powerful witch known as the Ice Calamity. Right then, a stone platform rises from the ground and offers Iska magical weapons to help him on this mission. When asked if he needs anything else, Iska makes a bold move. He asks for 3 handpicked teammates to join him. Somewhere in the city, a girl named Neen is working a shift as a cafe waitress when her buddy Jaehin walks in, who is a virgin for 100 years lead who's way too intense for his age, and let's be real guys, his face wouldn't tolerate any bitch. Jaehin lets her know that Iska just got out of prison and is all set to return to the battlefield. Tomorrow, they'll be joining him at the front lines. That same night, Iska steps out of the prison gates and gazes up at the sky. It's the first time in a year he's seen it. Not long after, Jaehin and Neen show up to welcome him. It's pretty obvious that one of them is way more thrilled than the other to see him again. Right then, their 4th teammate shows up, Captain Miss, who's both short and super curvy. She immediately trips and faceplants, then throws a full-on meltdown about how she's still a total mess despite being 22 years old. Even though she just tripped, Miss is clearly thrilled that their Unit 7 is finally back in action. While they travel, the group talks about how risky their mission is. Miss brings up the Ice Calamity, rumored to be the most powerful mage in history. But since the mages don't know Iska is involved, Jaehin feels they've got the upper hand and can finish the mission smoothly. He also thinks the higher-ups are panicking. Why else would they drag Iska out of prison for a random operation? Iska's freedom depends on whether or not this mission succeeds. Still, his mind is stuck on the never-ending war, which seems more hopeless than ever. The next day, the squad reaches a reactor site. Neen points out that the place is still incomplete, mages keep sabotaging it. Thanks to her engineering skills and detective-level awareness, she quickly spots all the flaws in the structure. Then Jaehin starts going off again with one of his dramatic speeches, but no one's really listening. He rants about how the war has stopped making sense and is now just fueled by anger and pain. According to him, someone has to do like a savior, become the bad guy on purpose just to bring it all to an end. Later on, as the squad drives through the forest toward a meeting spot, their jeep suddenly comes under fire, literally. An astro mage launches a surprise attack even though they're deep in Imperial land, which means the Nebulize crew somehow slipped through the border without anyone noticing. While they're still figuring out their next move, Neen gets a distress call from one of the backup teams. But before they can react, a blazing fireball comes flying their way. Iska doesn't waste a second, he slices it clean in half with his black blade, revealing 2 mages hiding behind the trees. But turns out, it wasn't just 2 of them. A whole group of enemy spellcasters was cloaked behind some weird magical illusion. Even though they're clearly outnumbered, Unit 7 doesn't back down. They launch a barrage of missiles straight at the enemies. Within seconds, Iska and Jaehin manage to knock out every last mage around them. Jaehin jokes that Iska could have taken them all solo if he hadn't gotten a bit rusty during his year locked up. Suddenly, the ground rumbles, and bursting out of it is a massive stone golem, summoned by another astral witch named Rin. Iska quickly slices off the golem's arm like it's nothing and tells the squad to keep moving while he handles the rest. Not long after, he corners Rin and demands answers about the Ice Calamity Witch. But Rin flat out refuses, she'd rather go down than sell out her own. She tries to pull off a surprise attack, but it fails miserably. Right then, her superior, Alice, shows up and drops the bomb. She is the Ice Calamity Witch. With a wave of her hand, the entire forest gets flash frozen, turning into a winter wasteland. Turns out, Alice had planned this from the start, to freeze and destroy the reactor without setting off a huge blast. What Alice didn't know is that Iska used to be one of the Saint disciples, so it's no mystery to him how he beat Rin. After a short talk, their clash begins. Alice bombards him with a storm of icy spikes, but Iska's white blade is enchanted with astro magic, letting him block and counter each one. Impressed but not willing to back down, Alice tells him to surrender. Iska refuses, saying he wants to end this war that's been dragging on for too long. That catches Alice off guard. She opens up, saying she dreams of defeating the Empire and creating a peaceful, united world. But just as her speech hits its peak, she slips on a chunk of ice. Iska catches her mid-fall, instantly flipping the intense battle into something straight out of a cheesy rom-com. Alice, totally flustered, calls in her giant owl to carry her away, warning that she won't go easy on him next time. Once she's gone, the rest of the team shows up and is super relieved to see Iska still alive. Back at her place, Alice spends hours soaking in the tub, desperately trying to scrub away the embarrassment of being caught by Iska during that awkward moment. While Rin tends to her needs, Alice can't stop replaying the scene in her head, which only makes her more irritated. Wanting a distraction, she decides to head out to the neutral city's opera house to catch a tragic romance play about a doomed knight. As the play reaches its heartbreaking end, Alice finds herself in tears. A stranger sitting behind her gently hands over a handkerchief. Touched by the gesture, she turns to thank him after the show, only to freeze in shock as the lights reveal it's none other than Iska himself. Earlier that day, Iska had been dealing with insomnia. Miss came to check on him. Knowing she's pretty useless in real combat, she figured playing team cheerleader was her way of helping. While chatting, Miss asked Iska what was bothering him. He confessed he couldn't stop thinking about his intense fight with Alice. Trying to lift his mood, Miss decided he needed a change of pace and brought him over to her room, totally forgetting that her whole bikini collection was out in the open for everyone to see. Later that night, Miss brewed some tea for Iska and handed him a ticket to the same opera Alice planned to attend. She had already seen the show 9 times and figured Iska should catch the final performance. The following day, on his way to the theater, Iska found himself lost in thought, remembering the day in the forest when his master, Crosswhale, gifted him the astral blades he wields now. While the play unfolded, Iska had a hard time concentrating. The woman next to him kept sobbing non-stop, so he quietly passed her a handkerchief to calm her down. Once the performance wrapped up and the lights came on, they finally saw each other's faces, and that brings us to the present. Alice is instantly suspicious, convinced the Empire must have planted Iska here to spy on her, and she's ready to throw down. But Rin quickly reminds her that fighting is strictly forbidden in a neutral zone. Doing her best impression of the classic blonde tsundere, Alice storms off, but in her head, she's overthinking everything. She's convinced Iska is tailing her. Rin, however, assures her that Iska didn't even budge until they were long gone, so there's no need to panic. Even though Alice is clearly annoyed and flustered, she shrugs it off and heads to a nearby restaurant to grab a bite and cool down. When they arrive at the restaurant, every table is full. The waitress gives them one option: share a spot with someone else. To their shock, that someone turns out to be Iska. Alice nearly chokes on her drink, and Rin jumps in, accusing him of stalking them. But Iska calmly explains that he reserved the table earlier since it was close to the opera venue. His story checks out, so they awkwardly agree to sit with him. Alice quietly tells Rin to stay alert just in case. Later, Rin suggests they head out, but Alice doesn't want it to look like she ran away from Iska. When both reach for the menu at the same time, Iska politely apologizes and offers to share, which makes Alice blush a little. They call over the waitress and, surprisingly, both end up ordering the exact same dish. As the food arrives, Alice slowly starts to open up, realizing she and Iska share a lot of similar tastes. But Rin warns her to stay sharp. When Rin criticizes how slow-cooked pasta should be, Iska and Alice instantly team up and roast him for it. That evening, Rin brings up that they usually report enemy encounters to the Queen, but this time, Alice suggests keeping the whole situation quiet. She also tells Rin to toss the handkerchief Iska gave her, reminding her that he's still the enemy and could become a threat. But Alice shifts the blame, saying it's Rin's pasta rant that made her agree with Iska in the first place. Later that night, both Iska and Alice find themselves lying awake, clearly catching feelings. Though neither wants to admit it, she wants his joystick. Iska eventually drifts into a dream where he's on a moving train with Crosswhale. Suddenly, monsters attack. But before they're overwhelmed, a blonde ice mage swoops in to save them. The next day, Iska is back to training with his squad. Miss, as usual, reminds everyone just how bad she is at combat. Then, another soldier named Rissa arrives, revealing she'll be leading them in their next mission. Miss panics, knowing Rissa's brainy tactics are too much for her to handle, but Iska reassures her they'll manage just fine. Learning that Iska hasn't been sleeping much lately, Miss offers him a ticket to an art show she won in a bet. Since she's not into art, she tells him to go enjoy it for her. Meanwhile, Alice visits her mother, Miliver, who wastes no time asking about the swordsman she faced near the reactor. Miliver says she heard Iska was as powerful as the Empire's elite saint disciples, basically their strongest fighters. She then tells Alice to look up at the glowing crystal above them, which holds the preserved body of their nation's founder. Miliver begins explaining the backstory, that the founder once fought off tens of thousands of Imperial soldiers, and that her body still pulses with Jellia, their life energy. What shocks Alice is the next part. Miliver reveals that the founder had a twin sister, and that sister was none other than Nebulis Eye, the one who started their royal bloodline. The Empire had no idea there were two of them, so when Nebulis died, they mistakenly believed the founder had perished instead. Alice then notices something strange. The crystal looks like it's starting to weaken. Miliver explains it first started dimming around the time Alice fought Iska at the reactor. She believes it's not a coincidence. When astral power feels threatened, it reacts, and Miliver suspects Iska has something to do with it. Alice remembers how Iska used astral magic with his white sword, But for now, she decides to keep that detail to herself. Later, Rin catches Alice slipping up again and suggests she get her mind together. Feeling like she needs a fresh escape, Alice decides to pick a new destination this time, someplace Iska won't expect since he already bumped into her at the opera. But the next day, to her total annoyance, Alice runs into Iska again, this time standing right outside the art exhibition. She's stunned and frustrated, thinking he's following her everywhere. Iska, however, casually suggests they just go in together since they're both already there. Trying to be clever, Alice goes the exact opposite way like a total drama queen. After wandering around the city for hours, completely lost, she ends up back at the central fountain where Iska greets her once again. Turns out, his squad's surveillance had eyes on the whole area, but even they couldn't find her. That's when he realized she probably got herself lost. He offers to guide her through the city, and during their chat, Alice accidentally lets it slip that she's a princess of the Nebulis Sovereignty. She admits it's strange that someone like her is casually walking around with an Empire swordsman. Iska simply smiles and says art doesn't care about borders, which makes her blush and low-key melt a little inside. Later, the two begin painting side by side. Alice asks why he's drawn to a certain artwork. Iska starts breaking down subtle details that most people would miss, and as he talks, Alice quietly watches him, smiling softly, clearly falling for him a bit. But the moment she realizes she's letting her guard down, she snaps out of it and hands him a drink as a way of saying thanks, trying to play it cool. By the end of the day, Iska dozes off on a bench, unknowingly leaning his head on her milk factory. Even though she still considers him a rival, Alice doesn't move. She just sits there, letting him rest peacefully beside her. Later on, the squad is drowning in paperwork, totally fried from information overload, so Iska shows up with sodas to keep their brains from short-circuiting. Just then, Rissia calls in and tells them to commit everything to memory, it's crucial for their next assignment. She also says she needs to speak to Iska privately and asks him to meet her at the Imperial Senate. Once he arrives, the top brass starts reviewing his latest mission report, where he went head-to-head with the Ice Calamity Witch. Iska considers it a failure since he wasn't able to defend the reactor, but the higher-ups say otherwise. His actual objective was just to stall Alice, which he did perfectly. Now that they've observed more of her abilities, the intel is extremely valuable. They're so impressed with his performance that they're even thinking about reinstating him as a saint disciple. But there's a catch. To earn that title again, Iska has to go on one more critical mission. This time, he's tasked with capturing Alice alive. That night, lying in bed, Iska thinks back on the time he spent with Alice and what might happen if they face each other again. He calls up Miss to let her know he won't be at training tomorrow. When she asks why, he tells her he's heading to the neutral city to meet someone. Miss, being the overly caring squad captain she is, agrees, but only if he takes her along. She knows Iska has been carrying a lot lately and wants to tag along to lift his mood and support him the best she can. Meanwhile, Alice thinks back to the moment she quietly put Iska into a taxi while he was sleeping, sending him off as a small thank you for spending the day with her. Just then, Rin walks in holding a dossier packed with details, revealing that Iska is actually the youngest person ever to become a saint disciple in Empire history. But here's the twist, even after being promoted, Iska never once appeared on the front lines. That's why barely anyone knows who he is. Rin adds that he lost his title and was thrown into prison for an entire year, all because he broke an astral mage out of captivity. Shocked by this, Alice asks Rin to find out who the mage was. Rin says it might take a couple of days, but promises to dig up everything she can about the girl Iska saved. After Rin leaves, Miliver enters and questions why Alice is getting so wrapped up in an Imperial soldier. She gives a serious lecture about the horrors the Empire has caused and reminds Alice that their mission is to defeat them for the sake of real peace. When Miliver notices a painting hanging in Alice's room, one done by an artist from the Empire, she scolds her, saying that even creators can be used as tools by the enemy. Once Miliver leaves, Alice clutches the handkerchief she got from Iska, remembering the small, quiet moments they shared. Without a word, she calls Rin back in and firmly tells her to get ready. They're heading to the neutral city first thing tomorrow. The next day, Iska heads toward the neutral city with Miss, telling her he has a strong hunch that Alice will show up. While traveling, they spot an albatross soaring overhead. Miss points out how rare it is to see one in the Empire, almost like a lucky sign. Later, Iska arrives at the city and meets Alice near the familiar fountain. Miss, curious and confused, nudges him and asks who the curvy blonde is. Before he can answer, Alice proudly steps forward and introduces herself like a celebrity, "I'm the Ice Calamity Witch." The group moves to a more private spot, where Alice questions Iska about the mage he rescued a year ago. Iska explains that the girl was just a young kid with barely any astral power, and he couldn't bear to watch the Empire torture someone so innocent for the sake of war. Alice quickly calls him out, accusing him of being a hypocrite. After all, wasn't he assigned to kill her not too long ago? Iska responds honestly. He says that even though he's tried to push for peace, no one listens to him, not the Empire, not the Nebulis. So, he made a choice. If he captured someone like her, a direct descendant of their founding bloodline, maybe he could use that to pressure both sides into a ceasefire. But Alice shakes her head. She tells him that idea will never work. People from her nation carry a deep, Generational hatred for the Empire, one that won't vanish until they win. Still, she can't help but be moved by Iska's empathy, and out of nowhere, she invites him to serve under her. Rin instantly loses it, throwing a mini meltdown because Alice's level of delusion has officially gone off the charts. Just then, the air shifts, dark energy ripples across the sky. The clouds tear open, and a powerful presence descends. A white-haired woman steps out of the sky, and Alice's eyes widen in disbelief. It's the founder, Nebulis herself. Miss instantly thinks Alice set them up, assuming this was a trap from the start. But Alice looks just as shocked. She clearly had no idea this was going to happen. High above, Nebulis lays eyes on Iska's astral swords and, without a moment's hesitation, begins torching the city with raw, destructive power. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Miliver senses the sudden surge of astral energy and realizes what it means. The founder has broken free from the crystal. Instead of panicking, she smiles, believing that with Nebulis now awake, the war will soon come to an end in their favor. Back in the neutral city, the team manages to survive Nebulis's first wave of destruction. Iska is confused. Why is the legendary founder attacking her own bloodline? Nebulis then explains that this is all part of astral power's built-in self-defense. It activates on its own when it feels threatened, but even she doesn't know what it's reacting to. Alice, visibly frustrated, confesses that she only came here to have a real talk with Iska, just the two of them. Now everything's ruined because their ancient ancestor decided to crash the moment. When Alice begs Nebulis to stop, the founder assumes she's betrayed her lineage and joined the Empire, and immediately targets her. Rin steps in to protect Alice, shielding her with magic, but gets severely burned. Iska tells Alice to use her ice magic to cool Rin's wounds and quickly orders Miss to rush her to the hospital. As he pulls out both of his swords, Nebulis instantly recognizes them, they're Crosswell's blades. But she doubts Iska has what it takes to use them properly and launches an all-out attack. Alice joins Iska, and the two fight side by side, pushing back against Nebulis's overwhelming power. As they battle, they argue that her time has passed and she's no longer needed, she should return to her slumber. During the clash, Iska reminds Alice that this is neutral territory, and both of them want to protect it. That shared goal gives them the trust they need to sync up their powers and finally overwhelm Nebulis, forcing her to retreat. Once it's over, Iska tells Alice that he can't switch sides, not yet. But he offers a temporary truce just for today. Alice nods and agrees, but warns him with a smirk, tomorrow we're back to being enemies. A few days later, the squad is hanging out at a flashy casino, throwing cash into gambling machines like there's no tomorrow, just like you, who Thor white sauce on screen. Dean questions what they're even doing here. Turns out, 2 weeks earlier, Rissia told Miss that their next mission would be under her command, so this was their last vacation before things got serious. The squad assumes the upcoming job might be a do-or-die situation, and Rissia probably wanted them to blow off some steam beforehand. Trying to lift the mood, Jaehin shrugs and says every mission feels like a one-way trip to the afterlife anyway, especially for a squad like theirs. Miss then reveals her true motive: she brought them to the casino to win big. If they hit the jackpot, she plans to buy a battle-grade tank to boost their odds of surviving whatever dangerous mission lies ahead. As they go back to throwing coins at the machines, Alice arrives at the casino too. Rin starts giving her a quick tour, explaining that Zurich is known as a city of fun and indulgence. But Alice clearly wanted to head to the neutral zone instead. Rin figured it was just an excuse to run into Iska, so she vetoed the idea. She leads Alice toward the slot machines, and they casually walk right past Iska and Miss without even noticing them. But Alice isn't here for the games, she's focused on choosing the perfect time for her next duel with Iska. Rin hits the slot button for fun, and miraculously, they land a jackpot on their first spin. She's over the moon and rushes off to find the casino staff, while a crowd starts gathering around the machine. That's when Neen walks over, congratulates Alice, and jokes that they could probably afford a tank now with that prize. But Alice couldn't care less about the winnings. Without hesitation, she hands over the entire bucket of coins to Neen, who runs it back to the squad. When Neen returns, she casually mentions that the thick, royal-looking blonde who gave her the jackpot must be some kind of princess. But Iska, not even turning around, brushes it off with a smirk. There's no way Alice would be here, right? Later, while wandering the city streets, Alice and Rin come across a small fortune-telling booth tucked into a corner. Curious, Alice decides to check it out. Inside, she tells the old fortune teller that she wants to know when she'll meet the boy she's been thinking about lately. The old woman lays out her tarot cards, revealing a pair that seem to reflect a strong connection. She tells Alice that the person she's looking for is always nearby, that their bond is unbreakable no matter the distance. Moments later, Alice rejoins Rin, and the two continue exploring the city. Not long after they leave, Iska and the squad arrive at the same fortune booth. Iska, feeling playful, asks to have his fortune read. The result? "It just like you, she said no one wants his joystick. Sorry guys, I mean he draws the exact same pair of cards as Alice." The old woman gives him the same message. The girl he's searching for is closer than he thinks. Back in the Empire, Rissia is seen meeting with the Imperial Senate. The topic, something known as the Vortex. They inform her that reinforcements are urgently needed in that region. Instead of issuing orders directly to Miss, they want Rissia to take the bad cop role and deliver the news herself. Rissia calls up Unit 7 and casually drops the bomb, everything they memorized before. Completely useless now. Just like their squad's reputation, she jokes. They've been reassigned to a whole new mission. She explains that a massive battle, basically a century-long turf war, kicked off right after the Vortex first appeared. That Vortex is the root cause of why astral mages even exist. Now, a second one is starting to form, and if the Nebulis Sovereignty gets their hands on it, it could tip the war. So, Squad 7 Second's new job: stop enemy forces from taking control of it, no matter what. Meanwhile, back in Nebulis, Alice is alone, quietly holding onto the handkerchief she got from Iska. Rin enters and hands her a sealed message. It's from her sister, Sisbell. Sisbell's message reveals that a new vortex has been detected in Middle Valley, and the Empire's troops are already on their way to the site. She also drops another bomb. The Zoe family kept this info hidden from the Queen, likely because they planned to use the Vortex's power for themselves. To investigate, Alice heads to the Zoe family estate, only to find the entire place deserted. Just then, Rin senses someone behind them. A masked figure appears with a knife, and Rin immediately calls him out. Turns out, the man is Renavis, and this was just a test to check their awareness. He's surprisingly impressed by how sharp their instincts are. When asked what the meaning of this stunt was, Renavis claims he keeps a blade on him for protection because his astral power isn't very strong. Alice wastes no time and directly asks about the Vortex. He answers vaguely, saying there's no solid proof yet, it could be nothing more than a magma disturbance, but still advises sending troops just in case. When Alice questions why they didn't notify the Queen, he casually says the paperwork took time, but the messenger is already on the way. Alice sees right through his delay tactics and decides not to waste another second there. The next day, Iska asks Miss if she reported their encounter with Nebulis to the higher-ups. She says yes, but they were mad she didn't take any photos of the founder. While they're chatting, Miss bumps into an old friend named Noro and introduces her to the rest of Unit 7. Not long after, Commander Nameless makes an entrance looking like someone in a low-budget nomad cosplay and lines up the recruits for orders. He gives them two choices: either find the Vortex before the enemy does, or destroy it completely if they can't. The team heads out to begin their search, but they fail to locate the Vortex. Suddenly, Miss receives a message from Noro, warning her that one of their units has gone missing while scouting the area, and they've lost contact with two backup teams sent to find them. When everyone regroups at the base, Nameless coldly announces there's no need to attempt a rescue. That decision infuriates Unit 7. Determined to get answers, Iska steps forward to challenge him, but Nameless brushes him off, calling him a traitor for letting a prisoner escape. He refuses to waste his time or energy on what he calls a low-ranking joke. That's when Miss bravely steps in. Though clearly nervous, she stands tall and introduces herself as captain of Unit 7, asking directly why no rescue squad has been sent. Nameless doesn't respond, but Miss earns some confidence from the moment. Feeling fired up, she then turns to her squad and decides to give them some unexpected motivation. Later on, Alice and Rin arrive at a restricted military camp. Even though the guards tell them the area is off limits, Alice strolls in anyway with the full attitude of a royal who's used to getting her way. They make their way to a massive beam of light shooting into the sky, and Alice immediately realizes it's another vortex. Just then, the masked noble Renavis appears, this time accompanied by a timid girl named Kissing. He explains that they were just about to notify the Queen about the Vortex's appearance. Kissing hides nervously behind Renavis, acting like she's genuinely scared of Alice. So when Renavis asks Alice to lead the defense efforts alongside them, Alice turns to him and questions if Kissing is really that dangerous. He confirms that she is. In fact, he believes Kissing is even stronger than Alice herself. Shocked but trying not to show it, Alice asks what they plan to do with the Vortex. Renavis doesn't hold back. He reveals the plan is simple: launch a full-scale war against the Empire. Meanwhile, Unit 7 picks up some strange astral signals coming from their base, readings that can only be caused by astral art. Jaehin immediately pieces it together, realizing their base has likely been infiltrated. He figures the missing units weren't wiped out, they were captured. Miss then informs the team that command has already moved the base to a new location, and their orders are to keep searching for the Vortex. Just then, they notice a bright column of light glowing in the distance. Believing this could be the Vortex, they quickly head toward it. Not long after, Noro's squad arrives at the scene. Miss, thrilled to see her old friend, runs straight into her arms like a lost puppy. But the happy reunion takes a wild turn. To everyone's shock, Noro reveals the light wasn't the Vortex at all, it was a setup. Her squad had fallen for it too, like mice chasing cheese. Pulling down her collar, she reveals a glowing astral mark on her neck, and without warning, she grabs Miss by the throat. As she starts choking her, Noro proudly declares that she's been working with the Nebulis Sovereignty all along. Suddenly, one by one, Noro's squad members drop like flies, taken out by an unseen attacker. The culprit soon reveals himself, Commander Nameless, stepping out of stealth like it's nothing. He's ready to execute Noro on the spot, but one of her squad mates makes a dumb move and casts a fire spell, causing chaos. The distraction gives Noro just enough time to escape, dragging an unconscious Miss with her. Nameless is about to hurl a knife at them, but Iska deflects it at the last second, knowing full well that Miss would have been hit too. Nameless is clearly annoyed by Iska's interference, but doesn't press the issue. Instead, he coldly tells the team to keep searching for the Vortex while he heads back to base. Meanwhile, deep inside a cave, Alice observes the Vortex and notes that it's far smaller than she expected, small enough that only a handful of mages would even benefit from it. Right then, Noro shows up with the still unconscious Miss. When she starts to wake up and sees Alice among her captors, she's shocked and confused. But Alice doesn't want anyone knowing she made contact with someone from the Empire. Before Miss can blurt anything out, Rin quickly knocks her out again, shutting her up before she can cause a scene. Then, Alice gets a bold new idea. She tells Noro to hand over the coordinates of the Imperial camp. With Rin's teleportation ability, they can get there instantly. Her goal, a direct, one-on-one showdown with Iska, no more games. Back on Iska's side, the squad finds footprints leading into a cave. Inside, they spot the actual Vortex. But time's ticking. Imperial forces have already started firing missiles into the area, and Neen calculates they've got about 20 minutes left to secure it before the whole cave collapses. In the middle of the chaos caused by the missile strikes, Iska sneaks into the cave and manages to rescue Miss, freeing her from her restraints. Just as they start to move, Noro tries to blast him with a lightning attack, but Iska absorbs the energy cleanly with his astral sword. Suddenly, Lady Kissing makes her entrance. She catches an incoming missile in midair using her bizarre astral magic, then completely erases it from existence like it was never there. With that handled, she turns her focus to Iska, revealing that her orders are clear: eliminate any Imperial soldiers on sight. Realizing how dangerous she is, Iska tells Miss to stay hidden and out of harm's way. Kissing unleashes a barrage of astral attacks, but Iska blocks every one of them with his blade, something that clearly surprises her. She never expected someone to counter her attacks so effortlessly. Frustrated, Kissing regenerates the missile she had absorbed earlier and attempts to wipe Iska out for good. But when the smoke clears, Iska walks out without a scratch, catching her completely off guard. Losing her composure, she recklessly charges him with full force. But Iska, staying calm under pressure, uses his agility and sharp instincts to dodge and get in close, then lands a clean strike to her midsection, knocking her out cold. As Kissing collapses, Noro panics and bolts from the cave like a coward, while Miss rushes over to Iska to check on him. Before they can even catch their breath, the masked Lord Renovus suddenly appears behind Iska. Even though Iska spins around fast, he still ends up getting cut by Renovus's blade. Then, the masked Lord Renovus shows up out of nowhere, grabs Kissing, and instantly teleports next to Miss, shoving her straight into the heart of the Vortex. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin arrive at the Imperial base, only to find it completely deserted. Just as things go quiet, Rin suddenly senses something off and shoves Alice out of the way, taking a slash herself. That's when Nameless drops his invisibility and steps forward. Enraged that Rin got hurt, Alice prepares to make him pay. She launches into a duel, but at first underestimates Nameless, nearly getting her throat slashed in the process. Realizing her mistake, she apologizes for holding back and vows to fight seriously. Unleashing her great ice calamity, she freezes the entire battlefield in a blink. Nameless, however, barely manages to escape before being trapped. Later, back at the Vortex site, Alice sees Iska leaping in to rescue Miss. Desperate to finish their personal fight, she jumps in right after him, shouting about how hard he is to track down. She offers to help him, but only if he agrees to settle their duel afterward. Iska accepts and takes her hand. She forms frozen platforms for support, but before they can climb out, a strange voice echoes from within the Vortex, knocking Alice away and pulling Iska and Miss inside. Left behind, Alice cedes in frustration, silently hoping Iska makes it out so they can finally finish what they started. Meanwhile, Min and Jaehin finally track down Iska and Miss and immediately ask how the two managed to survive the Vortex. Iska, holding a glowing crystal in his hand, can't really explain what went down, everything happened too fast to process. Over in the Nebulis Sovereignty, Alice finds herself randomly watering plants, clearly distracted as she recalls the moment Iska took her hand. When Rin checks on her, Alice suddenly goes into full denial mode. But Rin sees right through her. She realizes Alice won't be able to focus until she gets closure with Iska, so she suggests they arrange another meetup in the neutral city. The idea instantly brightens Alice's mood. Back at the Empire's base, Jaehin teases Miss about getting captured, blacking out, and then voluntarily throwing herself into a vortex. True to form, Miss drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness like it's the end of the world. Iska reassures her that it's fine, he's just happy they made it out alive. But just then, Miss starts to feel something strange on her shoulder. Before anyone can check it out, Rissia shows up with a new assignment. This time, the Empire wants Unit 7 to sneak into the Nebulis Sovereignty under her lead, with the goal of kidnapping Queen Nebulis herself. The mission sounds so insane that Jaehin flat out asks if she's joking. Iska agrees, saying it feels like they were just handed a one-way ticket to certain doom. But when Rissia confirms the mission is 100% legit, the squad immediately asks if she even has a plan. She explains that during the earlier witch trials, people were marked with astral crests, symbols used to identify mages and citizens of the Nebulis Sovereignty. These crests eventually became a kind of passport. Anyone without one, probably a spy from the Empire. Naturally, the squad is concerned, how are they supposed to sneak in without those crests? Rissia assures them that within 3 days, she'll have a clean and secure way for them to enter enemy territory. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin have been waiting in the neutral city for Iska for 3 days straight, but he still hasn't shown up. Alice starts getting frustrated, wondering where he's disappeared to. Rin tries to keep things realistic and brings up the idea that maybe Iska didn't survive the Vortex. But Alice isn't buying it, she believes deep down that he's alive. He's too tough to go down like that. They decide to split up. Alice heads to search the main streets while Rin checks the surrounding area. After she leaves, Rin reflects on how Alice is supposed to be the next queen, but others are circling the throne like vultures, just waiting to claim it. Right now would be the perfect time for Alice to win public favor, yet she's too focused on chasing after Iska to care. Back in the Empire, the squad gathers to talk about how risky their next mission is. While they're deep in conversation, Miss suddenly feels that strange sensation in her shoulder again. Neen asks her to take off her jacket so she can check, and to everyone's shock, there's now an astral mark on Miss's body. Panicking, Miss starts freaking out. Iska gently places a hand on her shoulder and calmly asks if she remembers when it might have appeared. Jae-hin guesses it must have happened when she jumped into the vortex, meaning her body is compatible with astral energy, making her a potential mage. Shaken, Miss drops to her knees. Jae-hin and Neen start wondering if they should report this to the higher-ups, but Iska softly tells Miss that she can just hide the crest and keep serving as their captain. Jae-hin and Neen agree and swear to protect her no matter what. Meanwhile, Alice returns to the Nebulis Sovereignty after failing to find Iska, still searching for spots he might have passed through. Back with the squad, they brainstorm how to hide Miss's crest, knowing a saint disciple could probably detect it. The next day, Iska takes Miss to the neutral city to help her relax, but he starts feeling guilty like he's hiding her away. But Miss tells him it was the right call, she actually feels free here, not like she's on the run. They share a quiet moment, and Iska reflects on peaceful times, promising to end this war so no one like Miss has to keep hiding who they are. After that heart-to-heart, Miss heads off to grab some drinks. Elsewhere, Alice is still wandering the city, and by pure luck, she ends up near the bench where Iska is sitting. Sweating under the sun, she asks to sit beside him, only to realize it's Iska himself. She's stunned, upset he vanished, and says she had so much to tell him, but now her mind is blank. Iska offers her the seat, but she refuses since they're technically enemies. When he suggests standing so she can sit, Alice replies she wants them to sit side by side, as equals. As they both settle in, spaced out like rivals in a romance drama, Alice admits she's glad he's okay. Noticing Iska is lost in thought, she asks him to open up, but he quietly declines, reminding her they're still on opposite sides. Still sitting with Iska, Alice insists he spill what's on his mind, though her phrasing makes it sound more suggestive than intended. Right then, Rin shows up as the ultimate third wheel and hands her a lemon drink. Alice offers one back, and that's when Iska suddenly remembers Miss had gone off earlier to grab drinks but still hasn't come back. The moment he takes a sip, he blacks out. Rin casually admits she slipped something in his drink. Her plan wasn't to hurt him, she just wanted to prove the Nebulis Sovereignty is dangerous so he'd stop seeing Alice. What she didn't expect was how gullible he'd be to actually drink it. Rin, now in full chaos mode, even suggests they just kidnap him. As she lifts Iska off the bench, Miss arrives just in time to witness it. Alice tells her plainly, Iska is a threat to their nation and she's taking him into custody. But Miss, not willing to stand down, instinctively activates her astral powers, though she has no real control over them. Despite the sudden surge in strength, Alice easily overwhelms her and takes Iska with barely a struggle. Back in the Empire, Rissia reports to the Emperor that the Ice Calamity Witch has successfully captured Iska and awaits new orders. Meanwhile, in a vehicle, Alice comments that Iska, being a former saint disciple, will be treated worse than a maid in the Sovereignty. But instead of heading to the capital, she orders Rin to take a detour directly into the nearest nebulized controlled zone. Meanwhile, Rissia updates the higher-ups about Iska's kidnapping, but they barely react. Instead of helping, they tell her to continue with the original covert mission. However, she's got direct orders from the Emperor himself, retrieving Iska is now top priority. An eyewitness spotted the vehicle Iska was taken in, and Rin has already traced it to Nebulis Sovereignty's Province 13, specifically to Alcatraz, a heavily guarded prison sector. That facility also holds the infamous heretic Salinger, the one who openly turned against Queen Nebulis. Rissia suspects that if they bust Salinger out, he might even switch sides and join the Empire. She meets up with Unit 7 and gives them the green light to launch a rescue mission. She also hands over special containers filled with astral energy, which temporarily give the user a fake crest on their skin. Thinking fast, Jae-hin applies one to Miss's shoulder, covering her real mark for now. Rissia then gives the squad their full objective, break Iska out and cause absolute chaos on their way out. While they do that, another unit will slip into the palace to capture the queen, just like the original plan. Later that evening, Rin and Alice arrive at Alcatraz. Inside the car, Alice can't help but poke at Iska's chin, thinking he looks pretty cute while unconscious. Just then, a cat darts across the road. Rin slams the brakes, causing Iska to fall forward and land on Alice's shoulder. Flustered, she pushes him off, but that bump wakes him up. He quickly remembers how he got here and turns to Alice, visibly disappointed. He says he never expected someone like her, a princess, to resort to such a cheap move. Alice wastes no time shifting all the blame onto Rin, who fires right back, calling Iska an idiot for falling for such a setup in the first place. Meanwhile, Unit 7 successfully gets through the checkpoint using the temporary crests. Elsewhere, Rin and Alice escort Iska to a hotel and remind him that he's in Nebulis Sovereignty territory now, so trying anything funny could get him executed. When they reach Alice's suite, Rin suggests locking Iska up in a separate room for security, but Alice refuses, saying she doesn't want anyone thinking she mistreats her prisoners. Instead, Rin decides to personally keep watch over Iska and requests the staff move them to the presidential suite. At the same time, Unit 7 receives a call from Risia, who guides them to her location. Once they meet up, she decides to join them on the infiltration mission into Al Logan Prison Tower, where Iska is supposedly being held. Back at the hotel, Rin quietly cooks up a plan to eliminate Iska. She grabs a knife, slices her own hand, and creates a fake story that Iska attacked her, intending to get him executed under self-defense claims. She lunges at him with the knife just as Alice, completely unaware, is in the other room debating what to order for dinner. When Alice goes to ask Rin for her meal preference, she opens the door and is shocked to find her mid-attack. Amused by the situation, Alice smirks and jokes, asking if they should turn this knife fight into a three-way, which finally gets Rin to stop. Meanwhile, Unit 7 successfully breaks into the prison, but Risia splits from the group to carry out her own secret mission. Jaehin notes that Saint disciples rarely leave the capital, meaning Risia must have a deeper agenda. Back in the suite, Alice handcuffs herself to Iska to stop him from escaping, and to prevent Rin from pulling any more stunts. When Iska points out the obvious, like how she'll use the bathroom or sleep while chained, Alice brushes it off. But the moment she feels nature calling, she panics and calls for the key, only to realize Rin already left. Later, Rin returns and chains herself to Iska instead, letting Alice finally take a bath in peace. When Iska asks what they plan to do with him, Rin replies coldly, if it were her call, she'd lock him away forever. Just then, Alice walks into the room wearing nothing but a towel, completely forgetting that Iska is still there. Realizing it too late, she quickly turns away, accidentally giving him a full view of her. But Iska, ever the tactical nerd, barely reacts. His eyes are locked instead on the astral crest marked on her back. Though people always talk about her crest, Alice has never cared about their opinions. But for some reason, she's curious about Iska's take. Iska calmly tells her about his captain, Miss, who recently developed a crest and technically became a witch. Even so, he still respects her exactly the same. To him, the crest means nothing, it's not why he fights. He sees Alice as an equal and a true rival in battle. The honesty of his words hits Alice like a rush of emotion. She's so flattered, she starts casually flaunting herself like she's showing off for a private audience, totally caught up in the moment. Meanwhile, over at Al Logan prison, Risia pays a visit to the infamous Salinger, the so-called transcendent demon. Though he's been locked up for 30 years after betraying Queen Nebulis, the man looks like he hasn't aged a day. When Risia casually asks if he's really Salinger, he warns her not to speak to him so informally. He asks how she even got into the prison, and she shrugs, saying she still has contacts within the Nebulis Sovereignty. Getting to the point, Risia tells him the Empire plans to crush the Sovereignty and could use a powerhouse like him on their side. Salinger, unimpressed by revenge, admits the offer sounds boring, but since he's got nothing better to do, he agrees, just for the fun of it. Later that night, Alice and Iska step onto the balcony for some fresh air. Iska comments on how beautiful the city looks at night, and Alice quietly replies that behind those lights are buildings filled with criminals, many of them powerless, but one exception stands out. She tells him the Al Logan Tower is the most secure prison in the city. That's where they keep the worst of the worst, including Salinger, the traitor who once attacked the queen and earned the title of demon. Just then, Rin enters the room with news. Someone from the Empire has infiltrated the city. Her eyes glance toward Iska, but he immediately clarifies that he's been cuffed and monitored the whole time. Rin continues, while the central province appears quiet, suspicious activity has been reported across 12 other regions, including right here in Alcatraz. At the same time, Unit 7 notices the alarms blaring throughout the facility, followed by emergency squads rushing into action. But Jaehin stays cool, figuring the guards aren't after them, they're just reacting to the commotion. Suddenly, the ground trembles. Risia radios in, revealing that someone blasted a massive hole through the prison wall using astral magic. When Miss asks about Iska, Risia casually says he's not even in this tower, keeping quiet about the fact that she never actually planned on rescuing him. She orders the squad to retreat, but before they can, two guards spot them and begin moving in fast, putting Unit 7 in a tough spot. Meanwhile, over near the presidential suite, Alice and Iska see smoke rising from the prison tower. Rin confirms there's been an explosion, and now a massive roar has been heard coming from Salinger's cell. They fear the demon might have broken free. Alice realizes exactly where he'd go, her mother's astral spirit chamber, and she's the only one capable of tracking him down. She tells Rin to prepare transportation immediately and heads out, albeit reluctantly. Before leaving, Alice turns to Iska. She reminds him she technically shouldn't be saying anything, he is still the enemy, but confesses that sharing what's on her mind might help ease the weight she's carrying. Blushing, she pulls out a red handkerchief and places it on the table. It's her way of repaying him for the one he gave her, though she awkwardly adds that his old one is kept in a personal place, so she got him a new one. With that, she bolts out of the room, leaving Iska completely baffled. Back inside the prison tower, as the guards close in, Miss boldly reveals her astral crest to draw their attention, giving Jaehin and Nin a chance to strike. She darts around to keep the guards distracted, but in typical Miss fashion, ends up cornered, and just as one of the guards raises his weapon, she's staring down the barrel of execution. Luckily, Jaehin and Nin take down the guards just in time, following the plan perfectly. As soon as the danger passes, Miss breaks into tears, trembling and admitting how terrified she was to die. Nin gently comforts her, and once she calms down, Miss decides to try calling Iska, hoping he might answer. Back at the hotel, Iska hears his phone buzzing and dashes into Alice's room to grab it. To his relief, it's Miss, and they finally reconnect. They quickly update each other on what's going on from both ends. The squad asks if Iska can find a way to get rid of the handcuffs, and that's when he remembers the red handkerchief Alice left behind. Running outside, he unwraps it and finds a key tucked inside. Now free, he tells the squad to stay put, he's coming to help. Meanwhile, Alice and Rin are racing toward the prison when their car is suddenly hit. They barely escape before the vehicle goes up in flames. As they get closer, Rin reveals that Imperial forces are causing chaos all over the province. Determined, Alice promises to handle each crisis one by one. When they arrive near the gates, the guards immediately recognize her and salute. Stepping into full leadership mode, she takes control of the scene as her mother's representative. She then orders Rin to take on Salinger while she handles the rest of the growing threat. Elsewhere, Iska reunites with Unit 7, who are more than ready to escape. But Iska asks for his swords and tells them to hold their position for just 15 minutes, then he rushes toward the prison alone. Inside the tower, Rin finally confronts Salinger face to face. Without flinching, she calls him out for what he really is, a lowly thief trying to steal the Queen's astral spirit. Salinger smugly claims he's not stealing anything, he's simply collecting astral spirits, like a mage king collecting taxes from his people. His true ambition: to gather every single spirit and ascend beyond royalty, because why settle for being a king when you can become a god? Tired of his delusions and endless monologuing, Rin launches every half-baked move she knows, throwing out every last spell in her book. But Salinger casually brushes her aside like she's nothing more than an annoying gnat, leaving her flopping around like a soaked rag doll. He reveals that his Earth astral spirit came directly from the pure bloodline, making her third-rate Earth-based magic laughably useless in comparison. Worse, he casually admits to having taken spirits from the royal family itself. Enraged, Rin starts hurling insults and curses, more out of desperation than anything else. Annoyed by both her weakness and her attitude, Salinger decides it's time to erase her from existence. But just as he's about to deliver the finishing blow, Iska appears, blocking the attack in the nick of time. Rin, relieved, quickly tells Iska who Salinger really is. Iska agrees to help fight him, but only if Rin promises to let him and his squad go afterward. Salinger, baffled by Iska's willingness to defend an astral mage, questions his motives, but ultimately shrugs it off. He's too confident in himself to care either way. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Nebulis Sovereignty, Sisbell is gazing up at the night sky when she notices someone approaching. It's their loyal butler, Shuvaltz, walking toward her with something on his mind. Sisbell was getting anxious about what was happening in their homeland. She asked her old butler Shuvaltz for an update. He told her that assassins from the Empire had made it into their nation and that the demon Salinger had broken out of prison. He added that Alice had taken command of the situation, which only made Sisbell more nervous. Meanwhile, Iska and Salinger were already battling. Salinger was shocked at how Iska could slice through his hidden sound waves. Turns out, Iska was using the heat from nearby fires to track the blasts and react in time. When Rin tried to reveal Salinger's abilities mid-battle, Salinger knocked her out to keep things between just him and Iska. During all this chaotic fighting and back and forth trash talk, Iska managed to land a hit, but Salinger had a wind barrier protecting him. Not backing down, Iska kept pressing forward. Salinger tried blasting him up from the ground, but Rin shouted a warning just in time, helping Iska dodge. Even though they're on opposite sides, Iska and Rin decided to temporarily team up, thinking they could outsmart him. Salinger then flexed about how he'd mastered loads of new techniques in the past 30 years, claiming he's the only one who fully controls the true power of the astral spirits. Meanwhile, Alice was busy commanding troops when she got jumped by Nameless. She barely stopped him in time. When she asked if he was behind everything, Nameless just told her to stop acting clueless and vanished before she could do anything. Soon after, Alice spotted Iska and Salinger clashing on a bridge. She was stunned when Salinger showed he could control both opposing astral energies at once, which made his attacks super strong. He hit them with a combo spell called Freezing Fire, and when Iska cut through it, the magic only got crazier due to the unstable reaction. After what looked like Iska getting blown to pieces, Salinger revealed his endgame to merge with the astral spirit itself, something only 2 people ever managed, one of them being founder Nebulis. While Salinger gloated, Rin stood up for Iska, saying he was the only warrior the founder ever saw as a real rival, and the one who actually beat her. Salinger thought she was just talking nonsense and moved to eliminate her, but Iska suddenly reappeared, alive and kicking. He explained how his black sword cancels out astral magic, and the wild sword copies it. He used the first to slice through the ice, then used the second to ride that ice through the flames to safety. Sick of Iska's tricks, Salinger mixed wind and lightning to unleash a thunder sandstorm. Rin summoned a golem to protect Iska, but Salinger saw her as a threat and aimed to finish her off. Just then, Alice arrived and blocked the attack using her ice magic. Even though Salinger had insane skills, he still couldn't handle Iska's crazy sword moves. He couldn't help but laugh at how fate threw such a strong enemy at him. Instead of dragging the fight on, Salinger just dove down into the pit below, ending things in a weird draw. By morning, Rin tells Alice that all the prisoners are rounded up and things are finally under control. When Alice checks if she's doing okay, Rin pretends she's fine, acting all strong. But Alice tells her to relax, reminding her she's not just her leader but also her friend. Then Alice asks what's going on elsewhere, and Rin explains that the Empire's soldiers have pulled back from the borders. Alice stares at the sunrise, realizing Iska didn't run when he had the chance, he stayed and helped them instead. That thought alone almost makes her short-circuit from how overwhelmed she feels. She quickly snaps out of it and decides they need to head back to the main province to report everything to the Queen. Meanwhile, someone known as Nameless reaches the Empire but gets a surprise. There's another Nameless wearing the same exact suit. Turns out, the person who fought Alice outside wasn't even the real deal but Rissia, who was just testing out the new military armor. She figures it's way too bulky and decides she'd rather trust her own skills than rely on some clunky tech. They then talk about how 2 enemy squads managed to sneak into the central province, which probably means they've already reached the palace. Before heading off to inform the elders, Rissia mentions that the Emperor is super focused on Iska, the next heir to Black Steel. Back at the Senate, the 8 apostles go over everything that just happened and start planning their next move. At the same time, Unit 07 pulls off a clean escape from Newly's territory, no trouble at all. They even joke about how lucky they were during the mission. Iska, meanwhile, is off in his own head thinking about all the chaos that happened after he got captured. Everyone's having a chill moment, until Iska randomly brings up Miss Crest. She freaks out instantly. That night, Alice and Rin finally sit down to process everything that's happened recently. After going through so much together, Rin admits that Iska truly deserves respect as a warrior. But neither of them realize that Sisbell is quietly eavesdropping on their conversation, listening in from the shadows. When she hears Iska's name, memories of the mysterious Imperial soldier who once helped her escape come flooding back. She can't help but wonder, could that have been Iska all along? Staring up at the night sky, she silently hopes to meet him again someday. Meanwhile, Rissia steps into a top-secret chamber to speak with the Emperor. She begins to update her on Iska's situation, but the moment she brings up Salinger, the Emperor cuts her off. She doesn't care about that at all, saying there's no time to waste on minor problems. Wearing a ridiculous catgirl outfit that looks like it was made to bait useless Discord mods, the Emperor is laser-focused on one thing only, the dramatic love story between Alice and Iska, which she calls the most exciting event in the past century. At the same time, Sisbell wakes up in shock after dreaming about her mother's death. She tries to calm down and heads out to find Millever, but sees her deep in conversation with nobles. Deciding not to interrupt, Sisbell quietly returns to her room. Not long after, She-Waltz appears with a message. Millever has summoned her. The Queen wants Sisbell to visit Alamira, a nation that isn't neutral and may have started working with the Empire. Sisbell, along with her astral spirit, is ordered to investigate and find out the truth. After getting her mission, Sisbell walks out of the throne room just as Millever receives word, Elatir, the first princess, has returned. Back in the Empire, Iska finishes up a health check and Neen tells him they've got a mission coming up in a week. Until then, everyone's crest powers will be sealed. But Miss isn't thrilled, hers is still active, and it's stressing her out. Just then, a brown-haired girl bursts in and scolds Rissia, who laughs it off. She introduces herself as Michaela from the Medical Coordination Squad and says she's found a major issue in their logs. Miss panics for a moment, thinking she's been caught, but Michaela explains the real problem. Unit 7 has been way overworked. The official max is 30 days, but they've gone way past that. So Michaela kindly offers them a 60-day break, which Rissia grumbles about. As soon as they walk out, Miss lights up with joy. She won't have to be tested again for 2 whole months. Now that they've got loads of time to deal with Mrs. Crest's problem, Neen takes charge of finding them a quiet spot far away from the Empire. Over in the Nebulis Sovereignty, Alice is drowning in paperwork, so Rin suggests they take a breather. Alice complains about how boring everything's been and says she needs a bit of thrill in her life. Just then, they hear a fair going on outside, and Alice guesses it's probably to welcome her sister Elatier back. Curious, she heads out, only to run into Sisbell. But the moment Sisbell sees them, her mood shifts instantly. Rin notices how different she's become, saying Sisbell used to be bubbly and full of energy. Alice says she doesn't blame her. Things have been tense ever since the 3 of them became contenders for the next queen. Alice wishes she could leave the central province for a while, but Rin firmly tells her not to. Sisbell is already going away under the Queen's orders, and with the Empire possibly making a move, they can't afford to lose their top mages. Meanwhile, Sisbell asks Shewaltz to drive her to Alamira. He's concerned because she's going without any guards, but she uses her astral art to show him a past convo with shady nobles. She doesn't trust anyone else but him. Her gut tells her someone is targeting her mother, and she's determined to keep her safe no matter what. Master Lord watches them leave and heads back to his palace, where Elatier, the first princess, shows up. Lord tries to sweet-talk her, but she cuts straight to the chase. One of their people is working with the Empire. She thinks they haven't officially betrayed Nebulis yet, but she plans to shut it down before it turns into something worse. Elsewhere, Unit 7 lands in Alamira for their much-needed 60-day break. As the girls arrive in swimsuits, let's just say the waves aren't the only thing rising. After a whole day of swimming, the crew walks back to the hotel. Jin carries Miss on his back while Neen asks him to take her to their room. She and Iska will grab dinner. On the way, Neen stops for a quick bathroom break, and Iska waits outside. Suddenly, a girl bumps into him, and when he sees her face, he realizes it's the same girl he once helped escape prison, Sisbell. But before they can say anything, Neen returns, catching Iska's attention. He tells her about the girl, but when he turns around, Sisbell's already gone. Sisbell, meanwhile, sprints away like her life depends on it. Once Shewaltz catches up, she's beyond excited. She's finally found the guy who rescued her. That night, she and Shewaltz sneak out of the hotel. Using her astral powers, she replays the moment she met Iska and tracks his location to another hotel. Instead of knocking, she unlocks the door and walks right in. Iska, caught off guard, instantly tackles her, thinking she's an enemy. But under the moonlight, he recognizes her. Sisbell tells him she just wanted to see him again, and invites him to return to the Sovereignty. Back in Nebulis, Alice is wiped out from all the workload. But Rin reminds her they've got an event the next day at 5 p.m. Just then, Millever shows up and takes them to Sisbell's room. She tells Alice that even though she's queen, she's still a mother, and she's worried because Sisbell barely talks to anyone and just locks herself away. She wants to know what her daughter is really feeling. Alice agrees to help. They split up to look through her room, and Alice finds an old newspaper hidden under a plush toy, one reporting Iska's arrest. Confused, she wonders how Sisbell even knows him. Rin guesses Sisbell might be looking into Iska, and Alice starts to think she must have seen her and Iska together. But Rin adds, Sisbell's astral powers only work within 300 meters, so there's no way she could have seen them back in Alcatraz or the neutral city. That only leaves one possibility: she must have overheard their talk. And now, Rin believes Sisbell might be suspicious of Alice. Back in Alamira, Sisbell calmly introduces herself and asks Iska if he can please get off her. He flicks on the light, and she quickly apologizes for barging in so late. She says she regrets never properly thanking him for breaking her out, and to show her gratitude, she offers him her bangle. Iska, expecting something completely different, turns her down awkwardly. Sisbell then explains she's read all about him in the papers, how he lost his Saint Disciple title because of her, and now wants to help him get that honor back by joining Nebulis. That makes Iska think of when Alice also asked him to serve her. Curious, he asks why Sisbell would choose him of all people in the palace. She slips up for a second and admits she doesn't trust anyone else, then instantly gets flustered and rushes out, leaving the bangle behind. Meanwhile, back at the Sovereignty, Alice and Rin report to the Queen, saying they didn't find much. Rin politely suggests sending Alice to Alamira, hoping Sisbell might feel more comfortable opening up to her sister. Seeing the logic in it, Millever agrees to send Alice as well. Over in the Empire, the 8 apostles receive news that Sisbell has gone to Alamira with only one escort. Seeing this as the perfect time to test their new weapon, dubbed the Witch Hunting Machine, they plan to capture the pure princess. Elsewhere, Unit 7 is setting up a breakfast barbecue, but Iska's zoning out, clearly stuck in deep thought. Meanwhile, Elatier pays another visit to the Masked Lord to continue their chat from before. She drops a bomb. It's actually her sisters who have been in secret contact with the Empire. At first, the Lord laughs it off, thinking she's joking. But when she insists she's serious, he immediately offers to help however he can. Elatier admits she loves her sisters too much to stop them herself, and if it comes to betrayal, she wants the Masked Lord to handle the punishment. Seeing her torn and heartbroken, the Lord reassures her that he'll take care of it if it comes to that. Meanwhile, Alice is riding a bus to Alamira when the driver suddenly slams the brakes. He says he spotted giant footprints on the road. The bus conductor starts ranting about a monster called the Basilisk, but Alice hops off to check it out herself. She finds one massive print on the ground, but it doesn't match the basilisk. There's also a trail of machine oil and more tracks heading straight into the city, which triggers her instincts. Inside the city, Unit 7 is walking back to the hotel. Miss is exhausted as usual. Turns out, Iska had suggested they change hotels just to avoid getting Sisbell caught up in their mess. It's scorching hot, and everyone's sweating buckets, which makes Miss's crest patch start peeling. It's a harsh reminder that they still haven't figured out a way to get rid of it for good. Jae-hin sighs, saying they spent hours brainstorming but came up empty. Still, he tells Miss to stop worrying for now and just enjoy the rest of their break before they dive back into problem-solving mode. But Iska also points out that this city sells stuff from both the Empire and the Nebulis Sovereignty, which means there's a chance they can find the same tool Neen used to hide her astral crest. Later, they reach the hotel, and Iska steps out to exchange some money. Jae-hin notices him acting strangely, scanning the area like he's expecting trouble. Not long after, Sisbell shows up, and Iska quickly leads her to a quiet spot so they can talk without being seen. Once they're alone, Iska asks how she managed to track him down so fast, especially after he switched hotels just to avoid her. Sisbell explains that her astral spirit allows her to replay past events like watching a video. During their chat, she finally drops the big reveal: she's not just some noble girl, she's a princess and one of the official successors to the throne. Iska freezes for a second, realizing she's Alice's sister. That only makes him more confused. Why would someone like her be interested in someone like him? Sisbell opens up and says someone with dangerous ambitions is targeting her mother. If the queen dies, it could spark a massive war between the Empire and Nebulis. Her astral powers revealed this plot, but she still doesn't know who's behind it, which is why she doesn't trust anyone. She begs Iska to help her prevent this war before it's too late. Meanwhile, Alice arrives in the city and meets Shuvaltz, who's clearly stressed because Sisbell has gone off somewhere without telling anyone. Back at the hideout, Iska tells Sisbell that he doesn't want war either, but he still can't join her. She keeps warning him about the possible all-out war, but Iska tells her his mission goes beyond that. He wants to completely end the 100-year conflict between both nations. When he brings up peace talks, Sisbell quickly says her people would never forgive the Empire for what they've done. Just as Iska is about to reassure her and say Alice believes in her too, the Masked Lord suddenly appears out of nowhere with a group of mages. Iska recognizes him as the guy who kicked Miss into a portal. The Masked Lord calls Sisbell a traitor and brushes off her side of the story with a you-know-nothing attitude. He says he doesn't care about her reasons, he just wants political leverage in the queen election. Sisbell runs, but he orders his squad to arrest her. Iska blocks their path, reminding them they're supposed to be on the same side. Even when Iska pleads for them to listen to Sisbell, the Masked Lord coldly tells him to stay out of sovereignty matters. Suddenly, a massive mechanical weapon crashes down in front of Sisbell. It's the witch hunting machine, created by the 8 apostles. Iska tries again to protect her, but the Masked Lord warns him not to meddle. Iska argues that Sisbell had a legitimate reason to reach out to the Empire, but the Lord shuts him down, saying rules are rules and any contact with the enemy is forbidden. Just then, Jae-hin rolls in with Unit 7. Miss instantly recognizes the Masked Lord from their last ugly run-in, and Neen spots the Empire's prototype weapon off in the distance. The machine scans the area, locking onto everyone with an astral crest, including Miss, unfortunately. But its top priority becomes Sisbell, since she's a pureblood, and it charges straight for her, ignoring the Masked Lord and his crew entirely. Realizing he's lost control of the situation, the Lord decides to jump into the fight, but Jae-hin fires a warning shot at his feet, telling him to freeze. The Lord tries to play it off, saying he's just here to catch a traitor, but Jae-hin isn't letting it slide, especially after what he did to Miss back in the Vortex incident. When the Lord tells his guards to attack, they remind him this nation is neutral. He simply replies that whoever loses the fight will be blamed for whatever damage happens here. Meanwhile, the witch hunting machine charges up an attack aimed at Sisbell, but Iska intercepts it, deflecting the laser just in time to save her. Neen arrives, determined to shut the machine down before it can send combat data to the apostles. Iska dives straight into the fight to buy her time, but soon realizes his blades can't even scratch the thing. At the same time, he's constantly watching Sisbell to keep her safe, which makes her wonder why he's risking so much for her. Iska, frustrated by her non-stop questions, snaps and tells her to stop talking. He's not letting anyone lay a finger on her. His words catch her completely off guard, and she's so overwhelmed her eyes well up, and maybe more. Just then, Neen finishes locking in the coordinates on her missile launcher and fires, blasting the robot to bits. Elsewhere, Jae-hin and Miss barely dodge a heavy hit, only to be ambushed by the Masked Lord from behind. Jae-hin immediately engages in close combat, but the Lord, now aware of Jae-hin's astral power, lands a hit that knocks him down. As Jae-hin struggles to stay on his feet, Shin whips out a pistol and fires a shot to the Lord's chest, only for the bullet to be stopped by a voice recorder hidden in his coat. Turns out, that recorder was his backup plan to fake evidence and accuse Sisbell of betrayal. But now that it's broken, he gets desperate and tries to recreate history, pulling out gasoline to set the entire place on fire, just like their founder did to the Empire. He commands his fire using Astral Soldier to ignite it all. But to everyone's shock, nothing happens. His astral arc completely fails, leaving everyone stunned and confused. Right then, everyone notices that Miss is using her wind astral powers to blow away the flames. Seeing this, the masked lord tries to snatch her to use as an experimental subject. But before he can get close, Jae-hin shoots him right in the face, wiping the smug expression and mask clean off. The man has no choice but to flee. Meanwhile, the witch hunting machine somehow survives the missile attack and switches to emergency power. It starts charging another blast to wipe out everything in sight. Sisbell quickly realizes it's powered by light-based astral energy. As the laser fires, she and Iska barely dodge the blast. The explosion is so powerful it echoes through the area. Jae-hin and Miss can hear it from a distance. As the machine begins charging again, Neen tries launching more missiles, but this time, her attack does absolutely nothing. Iska tells her to regroup with Jae-hin and stop getting in the way. Once she leaves, Iska charges back into the fight, slicing through the energy beams using pure sword skill while Sisbell cheers him on from behind. Then, Sisbell activates her ability to replay a past sandstorm from the same area, kicking up thick clouds of dust that block the robot's vision. This gives Iska the opening he needs to go straight for the core, and with one powerful strike, he destroys it. But just as they relax, a strange purple light appears, grabs Sisbell, and pulls her into the now evolving machine, which suddenly transforms into a strange monster-like form, basically a deadly Pokémon. Neen, Jae-hin, and Miss regroup, but they notice black smoke rising from far away. People in the city start crowding around to see what caused the blast. Back on the battlefield, Iska is still fighting the transformed robot, but he's starting to struggle. Just when things get rough, someone launches a powerful ice attack that pushes the enemy back. Iska instantly recognizes the magic. Only one person can do that. It's Alice. She demands that they release her sister. Just like when they fought the founder, Alice and Iska sync up, fighting together flawlessly. But the spirit machine hybrid counters every move. Then Alice realizes they're not fighting a robot anymore. It's an astral spirit. The spirit even starts speaking to them in the spirit language. Knowing it won't hesitate to destroy the whole city, Alice proposes a temporary truce again. She and Iska join forces, combining their magic and abilities to finally overpower the spirit. Eventually, they defeat it, and Sisbell is released from inside the monster's body. The apostles, watching remotely, lose connection with the machine, but they call it a minor setback and shift their focus to the next phase of their plan. Back in the city, Alice thanks Iska for helping her, but you can tell she's conflicted. He's still technically the enemy. While Alice is stuck in her emotions, Sisbell wakes up and asks how she knows Iska. Alice, being the tsundere she is, quickly denies everything and forces Iska to lie too. Sisbell can see right through both of them but plays along. She teasingly asks Iska to become her knight. Alice gets visibly jealous but can't say anything since she just denied knowing him. Now Iska's stuck in an awkward spot, caught between two sisters, which is to clap or both. So naturally, the man dips and runs straight back to his squad, like the king of dodging drama. Back in the Empire, Risia and Nameless are hanging out in the Emperor's room, chatting about Iska's unexpected hero moment. When Nameless asks where the Emperor is, Risia casually mentions she's out touching grass, basically taking a breather from all the chaos. Meanwhile, Salinger's chilling in a park, lost in thought about how Iska keeps surprising him. While he's zoning out, he notices a cat-el poking out from behind a tree. He calls out to whoever's hiding, and surprise, it's the Emperor herself. Over in the Nebulis Sovereignty, the masked lord returns to his palace, getting ready to prep Lady Kissing for the upcoming election. At the same time, Elatir is summoned by the Queen, who confronts her for leaking Sisbell's location. She even questions if Elatir is really who she says she is. Instead of answering, Elatir just gives a sly smirk. Back on the other side, Rin's pacing anxiously, hoping Alice gets back safely, completely unaware that Alice is actually out here sneakily flirting with Iska. Alice asks Iska to act like a total stranger around her people, secretly enjoying the thrill of keeping their connection hidden like it's some romantic scandal. She leans in close, eyes locked on Iska, and suddenly gets flustered, realizing he looks just as terrible up close as he does from a distance. That's it for today's video, guys. Watch the following video and I will see you in the next one.